Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And unfortunately, we have another sad story coming straight out of my heartfelt city of Chicago, Illinois, where another police officer and a female police officer ended up dying on the job. Chicago is down about 2,000 to 3,000 police officers. Outside of New York City, which has the largest police department in the United States, LA County has a very large police force. Houston has a very large police force. But Chicago has one of the top five largest police departments in our country. And Chicago is kind of the heartbeat of America. And they need something like 2,000 to 3,000 police officers. But over the last couple of years, as we all know, being a police officer is a very dangerous job. And in certain cities like Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Atlanta, it can be even more dangerous to a certain degree. And this one is an unfortunate situation. One, this was a young female police officer who had not been on the force for many years. And she was a single mother, and she accidentally got shot and killed by friendly fire by one of her own fellow officers. So let's talk about what led to this. Chicago police officer Crystal Rivera, remembered by the community after fatal shooting in Chatham. The community is remembering a 36-year-old mother. Now listen to how young she is. 36-year-old mother and Chicago police officer who the Chicago Police Department said was shot and killed by a fellow officer during a tactical operation last week. CPD, Chicago Police Department, confirms another officer unintentionally fired the shot that killed Officer Crystal Rivera on a Thursday night in Chatham as officers tried to stop someone who was believed to be armed. ABC 7 spoke to a pastor on Saturday at the church where Rivera attended. Meanwhile, Chicago's top cop said the officer who shot and killed Officer Rivera is dealing with difficult emotions. And he's urging the public not to draw conclusions about how Rivera died. Pastor David Cruz remembers the last time Chicago police officer Crystal Rivera attended service at his Faith World Church. She can be seen in a short church recording of a worship service. She was sharing how she wants her daughter to also just really get to know the faith, Cruz said. The Northwest Side Church had been her church home for nearly 20 years. We were completely shocked. I don't think I've wept as much in recent months as I did after I heard the news that she had passed away, Pastor Daniel Cruz said. Officer Rivera died on that Thursday night after police officials said she was unintentionally shot and killed by another officer as they encountered an armed person during a foot pursuit in the 8200 block of South Drexel Avenue in the city's Chatham neighborhood. On that Saturday afternoon, while at an unrelated event, Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling held a moment of silence for the slain officer while asking for prayers for the other officer involved, urging the public not to rush to judgment. He said that officer is in a very, very tough place. Unimaginable that an officer has to be, unimaginable what that officer has to be feeling right now, Snelling said. There may be things that an officer sees that no one else knows at the time. And a lot of times there are assumptions made, and we don't want to assume anything. This is why we always gather the facts. Through national numbers on so called friendly fire or blue on blue deaths are hard to come by. The National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund says from 2020 to 2024, of the 273 firearms related officer deaths, only 8 were categorized as inadvertent or accidental shootings. That's less than 3% on officer shooting another officer. ABC 7 law enforcement expert Derek Mayer, a former high ranking official with the U.S. Secret Service Chicago field office, said CPD will conduct a thorough review. A blue on blue shooting can happen, and unfortunately, it happens more than it should, Mayer said. Every day, I can tell you this: law enforcement is learning from past actions, and they are improving, and we're getting better in law enforcement. Superintendent Snelling said any information gained from a review of what occurred will help inform future training of officers. Meanwhile, a suspect who allegedly aimed a rifle at officers remains in police custody. And I guarantee you that the person who they were on this foot chase going after, we have to be honest with each other, probably was a young black male, definitely under 30 years old, uh, probably between the ages of 15 to 30. This is a very unfortunate circumstance where we're seeing an entire generation of young black males who have total chaos and disruption in their life. They have no building block for the future, and this criminal mindset is at a premium, especially in cities like Chicago. They don't call Chicago Chirac for nothing. So these officers were going after this suspect who allegedly had a rifle. This suspect was not going to college, going to a class in college, was not going to a library, was not going to a museum, was not going to work. Who walks around with a rifle and would and who would assume that you're going to do something positive with a rifle? If you're going somewhere where you need to have a handgun or a rifle, you probably should not go. How many people get in trouble going to a library, holding a book versus a gun? How many people get in trouble going to college, going to a college classroom? We need to reinvest our young people into education and not disruption, chaos, and prison. Officer Rivera was a 4-year veteran. Remember, she was in her 30s, mid 30s. She was a 4-year veteran of the force who was assigned to the 6th District Tactical Team. She was also a single parent to a young daughter whose birthday party was going to happen over the weekend. Now, just listen to that story. This is a young mother, 35 years old, 36 years old, single mother, trying to make it had to pick a job that she may have wanted to had always had desires to be an officer, but everybody knows the danger of being a police officer, especially in these major cities. And to be a female police officer and a mother has to be especially scary. Just put yourself in this young lady's place. Those who knew Officer Rivera said she had a sweet heart and a servant's heart that she had to have. I mean, when you're going to be a teacher, a nurse, a police officer, those are what I call civil service type jobs, where it is more about you having a helping hand versus how much you are being paid. And we know at least in those three professions, nurses, teachers, police officers are highly underpaid. And we know teachers are the primary resource for individuals going off to become professionals. Without teachers, you have no doctors, you have no nurses, you have no lawyers, judges, police chiefs, police officers, firemen, etc. Education is the foundational key to a healthy, moral, and ethical society. When we are talking when we were talking to Crystal 2 weeks ago, she was telling us that one of her greatest joys, this is Officer Rivera, Crystal Rivera, she said one of her greatest joys was doing what she was doing right now, being a police officer, and that was her greatest joy. According to the Chicago Police Memorial Foundation, 7 other Chicago police officers have been killed in the line of duty since 2018. 7. This is right in the heartbeat of America. That is way too many. While many in the city mourn the loss of another Chicago police officer, Pastor Cruz wants Officer Rivera to not only be remembered as one of Chicago's finest, but also as a loving mother, daughter, and sister who dedicated her life to others. So look at that. There are 3 parallels that have been affected by this female police officer, 36 years old, losing her life. She was a mother, she was a daughter, and she was someone's sister. So there is a trickle-down effect by this police officer losing her life in the line of duty, trying to protect and serve the tax-paying citizens of Chicago. And she was a single mother. If she had another job, maybe this would have never taken place, but she was giving her life of sacrifice and service to make Chicago a better place. And she ended up losing her life as a result. She said, I try not to focus on, Pastor Cruz said, I try not to focus on how she died, but how she lived. And she was just a precious soul. But let's mention the several other officers that have been killed in the last 2 years in Chicago. Crystal Rivera is the 5th Chicago police officer shot and killed since 2023. Let's go back. I did a story on Officer Enrique Martinez. He was 26. Look at the ages. Rivera was 36. Martinez is 26. He was shot and killed during a traffic stop last November in East Chatham, same area where Officer Rivera got killed. The suspect in that case was charged with first-degree murder. Officer Louise Huska was shot and killed in Gage Park in April 2024. The 30-year-old was driving home after his shift and he was ambushed. The suspect was arrested after a 10-day manhunt and he faces numerous charges. Officer Arena Preston, she was 24, was killed in May 2023. She was shot in an attempted robbery in Avalon Park as she returned home after her shift as a police officer. She was 24. Enrique Martinez, 26. Officer Crystal Rivera, 36. They're all in the beginning stages of their lives. And in the one with Miss Preston, Officer Preston, 4 men are charged with her murder. Officer Andres Vasquez Lasso was shot to death in March of 2023. The 32-year-old was responding to a domestic violence incident in Gage Park. Look at the ages of these officers. These officers have 20 and 30 years in front of them to protect and serve, and their lives get taken. So we're talking 24, 26, 36, 32 years old. And a suspect was arrested and charged in the death of Andres Vasquez Lasso. What is happening in our major urban cities. And there are some parallels. I think Brandon Johnson, as a mayor, has failed. You have all of this chaos and disruption that's going on with natural born Chicago, U.S. citizens, poverty stricken, fatherless homes, hopelessness and helplessness, inept inner city public schools. Kids are reading at 4 and 5 grade levels behind where they should be, and education is not even in the top 10 of where these young people want to reach a certain level of maturity. Reading a book is boring, it's not cool. Chasing the bag by any means necessary is where this young children of the corn is taking place, and you're seeing the majority, the bulk of these young people that are causing this kind of damage to themselves and to others are kids of color. Many of them, the majority, are young black males. And we have to do something about this because it is destroying our public safety. Now, on top of that, these are the people, native Chicagoans that are living in Chicago, that are suffering and struggling. Mayor Brandon Johnson decided to make Chicago a sanctuary city. So now you bring all this influx of these illegal immigrants that haven't been vetted. You dump them in poor neighborhoods with no ancillary services, no social services, and crime is spiking. That was a very poor decision for Mayor Brandon Johnson. And then you go to Governor Pritzker with these liberal laws. You have the Safety Act that is been enacted in the state of Illinois, where if you commit a major crime, a minor crime, and how do you define minor from major? You can get arrested and get out under your own recognizance, and then arbitrarily show up to court in 30 days. What has that done? That has increased the number of individuals committing crimes like shoplifting, like looting, like assaults, like property damage, carjackings. There has not been any accountability or responsibility for the negative actions that people are taking because they're not afraid to go to jail. There is a major overflow and burden on the court system in the state of Illinois, in Cook County, where there are far too many people that are in the county jail waiting for their trials for various crimes, and they're not getting to court in a fast and exuberant time. So there's been a plug in the legal system. There's been a plug in the county jail. And then you have this system of craziness that's going on out in our cities, where criminals know that there's an understaffing of police officers. Chicago needs 2,000 to 3,000 officers. Back during the George Floyd and the BLM, Black Lives Matter, everybody talked about defunding the police. Well, the police, with the way things are today with these liberal laws, police officers are scared to make a traffic stop and or arrest somebody without being sued or losing their job. The police force is defunding itself. Who wants to be a police officer today? They're underpaid. Your life is at risk each and every day. And then the criminal system, the legal system, is not showing these police officers much support. Are there bad apples in many of our police departments? Yes, we need to get rid of them. But I do not believe in defunding the police. It's already being defunded, in the sense that the numbers are so skewed in a negative way, where Chicago needs 2,000 to 3,000 police officers. New York City needs 4,000 to 5,000 police officers. St. Louis, Missouri needs over 500 police officers. Also, there's a decline in the number of correctional officers and sheriffs and connected to our jail and our judicial system. So the numbers are on a downward trend in our entire legal system, which lets folks that are out here committing crimes do them at an exacerbated rate that they're not afraid of any um, repercussions to their actions. And you're seeing a certain egregiousness that is taking place with many of these young folks, where they're not even afraid to attack in a police officer, a police officer, and or kill them. So where are we headed? We have lost and have failed an entire generation. There is going to be a huge influx of incarceration and homicides in America if we don't get this thing straightened out. And trust and believe, murder, assaults, uh, carjackings, the opioid crisis, homelessness, there is no barrier based on a zip code. Just when you think it won't be at your front door, these issues that are taking place from a social, economic, and a social culture standpoint will be right at your front and back door. This is an unfortunate situation for another Chicago police officer to lose their life, definitely in the line of duty. Crystal Rivera was in the beginning stages of her police career. She was 36 years old, a young mother. She had her whole life in front of her, and to lose it trying to make Chicago a safe place, and unfortunately, allegedly, another officer accidentally shot and killed her. It does not put a good light on Chicago. This will affect Chicago's tourism. This migrant situation is not helping whatsoever. It's exacerbating the health and welfare of our public safety system in a negative way. And Brandon Johnson, Governor Pritzker, the entire legislature of the state of Illinois needs to get it together. I am tired of hearing about innocent civilians being assaulted and being harmed and killed, let alone our police officers. Tell me what you think. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.